Hello and welcome to another episode of Getting into Git-oxide. Welcome back, Sydney.
Hello.
And as implied or indicated yesterday, today we don't continue with the stats program after having implemented such awesome ref statistics in favor of looking at an actual crate that we can oxidize. So look at the usage of Git-2 and see if we can put Git-oxide in its place. And yeah, this grade in particular, it has a lot of downloads per month, so I think this is why I chose it. So it also has only a few relatively simple usages, maybe deceivingly simple sometimes, usages of Git. And this is also why I think it's a great candidate to try out Git-oxide. And yeah, what we do on video is really just kind of the work offline and get our hands dirty, see what happens. And this is something that, in this form might not actually land as a PR because that's still, I think some more preparation will be needed for that. Hey, by the way, here we replace stuff without you ever, unsolicited replacement of crates. I'm a bit hesitant. So
yeah, maybe we should plan it a little bit more, do some more exploration and see how far we get with this.
Yes. So this is just a test, so to say, to see what's going on and how far we get, as you said, because maybe we are missing a feature or two. So then I already opened this in IntelliJ and I'm able to run tests. That's also pretty nifty and everything works. In some tests, they do print out a lot of things like this. And it's immediately noticeable that this apparently is really the current time and it's just printed to std out, so nobody makes assertions on it for sure. Probably at least. And I presume that if we break it, nothing will actually tell us that we break it unless we look at it with our own eyes like that. So we can try that actually. So that would be how I try it. I try to find Git somewhere and then break it and see if something, and run the test and see if something breaks.
Mm-hmm.
And then you know that it's safe to put Git-oxide in there because you can just run the tests again, or it's not because the tests are not actually testing what we are changing. Okay, now we run all the tests indiscriminately, 84 tests, and it all works. Okay, green slate, red, green refactor, this kind of thing, right? Let's see if we can get it to be red. Then about the file structure, we do have a bunch of features and it's nicely named. So I would look here for Git. And immediately my editor jumps to repository discover because I have opened this before and I have had a prior look, so I'm not entirely new to this code base. And I believe that configure Git is really, that's where the meat happens. And it's like how does it work, right? Somebody calls configure Git and there is a mutable config that is passed and that is just altered in place. Config is a hash map with, it's ultimately a hash map with a bunch of keys and these are just predefined and everything Git related. Git, yeah, here it's not prefixed with Git, but here's the Git related keys and they then just refer, wow, it's lots of constants here and lots of type safety for sure. And configure Git will then just put the keys in accordingly and collect data. And then somebody else will use this data to produce environment variables that we see here. I think that's kind of how it works.
Mm-hmm.
And these environment variables, you see how, generally, by the way, maybe it's also a bit of learning experience for how is this supposed to be used? How does anybody use this? what about this funny prefix here, cargo rust cn Vergen yada yada equals yada yada? Because this is something that you're supposed to run in your build script. I don't know, is there a build script here for example purposes? Yeah, kinda. And I don't know, but ultimately all you do is you print lines, and then cargo will pick these up, will parse them, and will see, this is for me, this is for cargo. And that's a rusty environment variable that is supposed to be set when I compile things, when I compile this package. And then it sets this key equals value environment variable when compiling the package.
I see.
This means that people...
I guess it would have been that this actually runs in the shell or something, that the cargo rust is like a command, but okay, this then just gets run by the compiler itself, essentially.
This, yeah, I mean, build scripts are super cool. They are compiled by Rust C. They're just standard. They're just a standard binary. Then the binary is executed, and its output is parsed. And based on these instructions, so to say, the next cargo invocation for building the actual package, whose build rs file we've just executed, this invocation is altered to, for instance, have additional environment variables set. And then at compile time, you can use macros like this to access this data. And now you have a string here. And I think there's also is there env-os? I don't know. But this just takes a string out of the environment. And now you can use that, bake it into your binary, so to say. This is compile time. This is not runtime. And that's what Vergen is for. And that's why this prefix is there. So I guess people in the build.rs script, they just run Vergen print or something like that. And then they will, it will print to std out to some buffer that they pass. Neat. Yeah. That's how it works. Let's see if we can break a test. I mean, I guess a lot should break if you don't put any information in, right? So if you go all nuts here and just return early, can I do that? Okay, that's interesting. It's unreachable code. I don't know why it's so red. Is that really an issue? Oh, okay, it's an issue because... Alrighty. Okay, I think I used the scroll bar here. Okay, that's also interesting. So if the MSRV configuration is set, then we will not allow any of that. So warnings become errors.
Okay.
And that's a huge or super useful feature of the Rust compiler, that it has so many built-in lints and that you can configure all lints according to your liking. You have allow, you have deny, and you have forbid. And deny is something you can actually override, but yeah. So this means in order to conduct my test here, I actually have to do that and remove that code. Oh, okay, that's not very friendly to people like me. Yep, okay, I'll remember that. If I really don't want people to mess with my stuff, I will totally lock my crate down like this. Okay. One test failed. That's good. That's great. Okay, let's see. So there's something tested here that tests using a regex. Cool. Okay, look at that. So there is some tests that test for general shape of Git related things. Awesome. This means we can probably not mess up too much, even though we could, you know, produce the wrong branch here. The branch is really just whatever. Everything is allowed, but if you get the commit date format wrong for some reason, then we would know. Timestamp, Semver. Oh, that's pretty good. That's useful. So that makes me happy. Undo changes. And now put in Git-oxide, I suppose.
So just a quick question about the testing, because it's yeah, like you said, it's only testing shape. Could we use something like snapshot testing to make sure we're producing the exact same output that is producing now? So essentially, this will be our goal once we're done with the Git-oxide integration.
Sorry, can you say that again? Because I just noticed that the video window wasn't on top here, and we weren't visible, and there was just a screen with people talking, and I was just confused and didn't hear what you say. Anyway.
Sorry. My question was if we should set up like snapshot testing to kind of say this is the goal that we want to reach with Git-oxide once we're done with the integration. Would that be more useful because we're testing the actual output?
Yeah, but then you have to isolate, like then you have to control the repository that this runs in so that the test is reproducible, right? Like the data is always the same. That's how I see snapshot testing.
Sure, yeah.
And right now, I think the whole point about these about shape testing is that you then don't need to know the data. You just know it's kind of formatted correctly. And even though, you know, it might certainly be useful to have a different kind of test that tests actual values just to be very, very sure. I guess that's a bit beyond the scope of what I would like. Like with these things, I'd probably love to just keep it as conservative as possible and adding Git-oxide ideally on top and not as outright replacement, so that it has some time to be tested and evaluated in the real world. So I probably also wouldn't just want to replace Git with Git-2 with Git-oxide outright, but rather have Git-oxide as optional thing on top. And we can just figure out how that would look like and also how we test that, because then yeah. So maybe have a look at the cargo toml and see how that is configured here. So by default, we get all the features, including Git. And if you get Git, we get chrono 2 and we get Git-2. And Git-2 is kind of what we want to put and make actually Git repository. This would be the goal. But then also you don't have Git-2 anymore. And
yeah, that would be replacing it completely.
So that probably wouldn't be my first choice here. Then the default is already to have Git, and that should stay like this. Like people don't have changed behavior in any kind once the change is done. So it's probably more like, okay, separate feature here, Git-oxide, that then uses Git repository. And then I'd say Git-oxide, if chosen specifically, it will override Git. So it's Git or it's Git-oxide or Git in that order. Because then I believe the default behavior remains. And if people choose Git-oxide on top, they get Git-oxide. As a disadvantage of this approach, if people somehow build or use all features, like, is there even a flag for that? No. Like if you use it as a library, there's no all features here. Okay, never mind. If you run cargo on the command line, there's a -- all features, which turns on all features. And then you have Git-oxide by default, which previously wasn't the case. Previously, because now, but yeah, that's a trade-off, and you have to make a choice. I think people use it like this, Vergen, and then they either use the default features or they say default features false and then choose which features to use. And this doesn't interfere. This kind of use doesn't interfere with what we are doing, because we would just add another feature.
I think that's the best approach, really. I mean, nothing changes for any of the users, and gives us a chance to kind of still be relevant.
Good. Then let's do it like this. Cool. Git repository. Ooh. Yeah, I think now it's broken. Let's do it like this. Cargo add Git repository. Optional, I guess. Is that a flag? Is that a thing? Cargo add, by the way, that's a subcommand that is not part of Cargo. You have to add this by installing a suite of tools that allow you to do these manipulations on the command line. And it's kind of just so standard for me because it selects the correct version automatically. That's the benefit. And I don't know that. And I don't want to use star or asterisk to use any version, because then you literally get any upgrade that I push. And that is kind of a bit dangerous, maybe. Because I do break things, but only after incrementing the corresponding semantic version here. So in this case, the minor version, but it does get incremented a lot. So that is correct. And then default feature is false because we want the minimal set of stuff, and we will turn on what we need. So if something is missing, we'll go in and choose whichever feature. Yeah. So there is no, I don't get any completion list here to read all the features, unfortunately, but there's a bunch. For now, let's just do nothing. So my goal would now be to, yeah, make this testable, maybe cargo test. So is there, let's see how to test that, right? So now I turn that on with Git-oxide. That then pulls in Git repository.
What exactly are you trying to test now?
I'm trying to understand tests first. So because you can configure tests in the cargo toml file, and you can have feature specific testing, so to say. You can say, run this test if that feature is enabled. It's called required features. So some tests, they might require certain features that you have to enable them. But, and I wanted to see if some Git specific testing is going on here. I think I should really close this down to have a bit more screen space. But there's not anything I could see here. There's dev dependencies, so some regexing going on as we saw, but nothing else. Okay, this means for us that when the tests are running, the default features will be enabled. Which means that if we really want to see if Git-oxide is doing anything differently or breaks, then we would definitely have to make a configuration here that enables all features, or that enables an additional feature. So I think if you do this, features, and then you choose a feature or multiple, Git-oxide, this should then run or do something if Git-oxide would be there. Unused manifest key, what? Default fear drew, okay. I don't know, it jumped elsewhere, just jumped to a different file. Typo. Okay. IntelliJ caught up. Thanks to the new dependency here. Pulled in a bunch of additional dependencies. Okay. A bunch of Git dependencies are going. What happened here? Unused crate dependencies. Oh, that's interesting. So it noticed that Git repository I don't use, and thus it doesn't like it. I've never seen that before. How can I? Like, it's interesting because they use Git also conditionally. So how does that work then?
Yeah, but I mean, they at least have it set behind a feature flag, right? And I don't think Git-oxide is anywhere in the code base yet, except for the cargo tunnel. So maybe we have to include it somewhere, just do an empty test behind the feature toggle, and then maybe that goes away.
That's right. So if I run the normal test, it shouldn't bark because it's optional and it's false now. And now once we actually use Git, but this really just means, right, that it works. It's an error, but it's a good error. It's the one that tells you that now you have to put in Git-oxide somewhere. Okay. I thought I should just use this this window here and put something into Git. So I think we already noted that configure Git is really where the meat happens. And now what will also happen is that people who use Git-oxide, they will also pull in Git-2. Unless they deactivate that explicitly or have their own set of features that does not include Git-2. I think we don't actually have to care too much anyway, probably to some extent we do, about everything that is not this configure. Where is it? Here. This configure Git. This is the main entry point, and this is the only thing that we have to deal with. And all the other little functions here, they are, yeah, they're gated separately, and they're just called from in here, I guess. Yeah, they're just called from in here. Okay. So I just leave everything as much as possible. Only this has to change. So if feature is Git and not feature is Git-oxide. And see, it already hides that. This means that configure Git we will not actually have when we have Git-oxide. So now if I compile this, it fails. Because it can't find configure Git anymore. That makes sense. And unfortunately, it will also have problems because now Git-2 itself is unused. Because all these extra utility functions, they're not actually used anymore. And we're in trouble. So can't actually do that. I mean, not like this. This probably says it wants to be refactored so that we can properly, I mean, we can do this, right? We can just put this everywhere. Wherever there is feature Git, we can put this and just keep going until we're done. And I don't think it makes anything prettier. So maybe we can do the refactoring and just do it heavy-hearted because I think it just has to be done. Okay, so I used the normal test now, so we don't get barked at for the lints. You know, when I was doing Go a long time ago, I was really upset by that linter because whenever you have an unused import, it's actually an error and you can't control it at all. It's just a hard error. And if you disable a line and then an import is unused, then it's a hard error, and then you have to go up there and remove the import, and it's just super annoying. It's really killing your workflow. And I was thinking, oh. And then comes Rust and shows you how linting is done properly, you know. And now in a way I feel a bit put back into that time where the linter is so aggressive that it makes this kind of change harder. But I guess this is already, you know, it's maintenance mode and you're not supposed to do that anyway. We're doing things we're not supposed to do, or we do things wrongly. Maybe there is some sort of global flag that, I mean, yeah. By the way, speaking of global flags, this is just a deny. So we can actually override this with an allow.
Mm-hmm.
But since this is meticulously mentioned here, like 120 lines of all possible lints, you would have to repeat that, of course, I think. I don't know if there's allow everything, just disable.
It's probably not a good idea.
Yeah, so then we would have to put that in and then not forget to take it out. And it's like, it's kind of a maintenance burden to do that. So I kind of rather want to leave it and work around it differently.
Maybe you can at least start like the this allow flag for the things that annoy you at that moment. So when something pops up, you add it to the list.
Maybe I can do this. Maybe I can do one line change here and just explicitly make also all the warnings go away that would otherwise happen. Just can't forget to remove this. Yeah. So maybe that. See? And isn't that good design that you can actually do that? Instead of me stupidly thinking, oh, you have to repeat that with an allow, because that's usually how I do it. That select things I allow, which you can do in a separate line. You can just do this. Okay, anyway, that's a different thing. But it's interesting. It's my first time too to actually have to actually see it like that. Okay, but we don't have to do this because now we just run this. And refactor. Goal of this refactoring is to have everything with Git-2 in its own submodule and then turn that on with the feature toggle separately. And the only thing that we put out is what has to be put out. So these pubs here, they're definitely needed, but they're independently of Git-2. Oh, I hope it's not getting more complicated here. Look at that. Config error git and then that's a cool thing. That's high. I've never seen that either, but it's cool because it really shows that somebody knows how this works, because this is just syntactic sugar here. And what happens, what the compiler does is make this into a string and then create a config attribute that is called, or config flag that is called doc, and put the string inside. And it can, you know, it just concatenates these. So you can just have multiple of these. So in a way, what happens is that all the above part becomes like this. And then comes that mingled in, and then comes the below part. This is how the compiler sees it, or the doc generator. That's how Cargo doc sees it, or Rust doc for that matter, which is a program that does the docs. And then it builds docs from that. And this is why that works, that you can have the sugar version and then selectively, if Git is set, then include some, you know, in your example, by the way, this basically is part of the markdown now and just becomes part of one big string. Then you have these additional imports that apparently are really only, and that's cool for us to see, that these are actually only available if Git is set. Which should be reflected in the top level somewhere, where I would expect, see, so it selectively imports these individually as well, instead of maybe using some sort of group thing so that you don't have to repeat this every time. But it's more like now you have to think about what happens if somebody sets Git-oxide but not Git. So this tells me that we kind of either want to change all of these to be Git or Git-oxide, so that we get these top level types and that doesn't change, or for full compatibility, so to say, you would have to do this, which is fair. And now somebody who selectively only chooses build and let's say Git-oxide will get these exports, so we don't have to alter all these features, for example. And again, from a maintenance standpoint, it's not so nice to have these individual lines that are kind of all the same, because it's all the same semantically. Just get all the stuff out of the Git module selectively. And that's pub crate, so it's indeed not visible otherwise. By the way, we can also explore that to be sure we get that right. Just run cargo doc and see what happens. It's a nice way to explore the module surface or the API surface of something. So now we see we get the Git struct, we get these things which are Git specific. Time zone, I don't know if that also is Git specific, probably not. Okay, this is Git specific, but it's all imported to the top level and there's no feature anymore, like this whole feature module that we saw earlier. Here, that's basically just implementation detail, which should really help us to do whatever we want to make it possible. Yeah. All right. So that's good to know. So only these two things I think are ultimately important, are they? Semver kind, char kind. And if any of these features is set, then we get time zone and timestamp. But yeah, I think now even with Git-oxide set, we definitely have these top level imports, exports done correctly. Now, nothing here seems to be Git-2 specific in these top level structures. Yeah. Even though it's kind of all separately, you know, I think this is overkill to have all this separately done, because it exports this, it imports, or it makes it public selectively. And I really have a feeling that this is maybe more than needs to be. And now we have to deal with it. This is the only reason I'm saying this, because otherwise I wouldn't have to care. And I think if there's any lesson to be learned here, is that, you know, the feature toggles should be on the highest level possible, have a separate module for that, put everything inside, and then you just have two feature flags here. You have one for the module and one for the imports, or for the users, so to say. If you want to make something public and expose it, then two feature toggles is enough, and not one for each item. Okay, still thinking how to get which structures to keep and what to remove, or what to move in general. Okay, so here we have this, if feature Git is not set, so if not any of, is this logically correct?
I think so.
I really am prone to get these booleans wrong, as sad as it sounds, but okay. So any of these, not any of these, it seems quite reasonable to me. Then have this empty default, okay. And now everything that comes below, I have a feeling we could stuff into a module that is called Git-to-impl, for instance. So we see that this is everything Git-to related. And now we just have to repeat a bunch of imports here. Yeah, let's do this selectively, why not? I was just about to copy. Everything. It also has a problem here, or is my formatting just not happening? Oh, I have to configure this, I guess. Tools, no. Where is it? Where's Rust? Rust FMT run on save totally. Oh, that's the next thing that can happen if you touch other people's code. If Rust FMT is not run by default, now you will change everything.
Yeah, true.
So that's the dangerous thing to do. And I was right. Oh no, it's hand formatted. So I think not using Rust FMT is also something that goes against making things maintainable, or let's say more easily contributable, because now I think I might have kind of, I have to turn that off again, definitely. Oh, I turned it off already. But now there's a bunch of changes here and I don't know what. So I guess undo. Undo this at least. And start over, which should be fine. No FMT. Fine. So the plan was to redo this. That's the only kind of valuable thing here. Any of feature equals Git-oxide. Can I add this to dictionary? Thank you. So, and now what I want is to get rid of a bunch of these Git feature toggles by just having one for module that I just call Git-2 and then I stuff everything in here. Is that properly formatted? Now it is, for some reason. And now, probably there's not too many types. Let's just import these by hand. There's apparently a special result type, which comes from anyhow. We can do that too. No. Can I import something? No, fine. I do this by hand. Use anyhow result path. Yeah. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, then you get these individual imports and that's cool. But now I don't know about the style of the project and how this is formatted and I can't auto-format things. And this makes me think I don't want to deal with that. I just want to inherit the formatting by just copying everything here and then remove stuff I don't need. Because yeah, sure, the code that we do here should ideally be as similar as possible to what was there before. Specialing refactoring should change nothing except for basic structure that you might need. Okay, so same here. If it's Git and not Git-oxide. So all feature is Git, because Git-oxide takes precedence, and not feature Git-oxide. So all of these statements have to be true, so that's how you have to read it. All feature must be Git and not feature Git-oxide, all that must be true. And this will this will do the right thing here. We should get some errors, probably, maybe, because there's too many imports here, maybe, we'll see. And now there is this configure Git. Which we now have to pull out of there again. That's fine. Also, all these feature toggles here, or these feature gates, we don't need them anymore, because now this is feature is toggled by the module itself. And that's why you do this, essentially. So now these can be removed. I think that's definitely part of the refactor. Oh, I think I removed too much. Have to be a bit more careful. Because here, config all, so if config test and feature git is set. So that resolves to if config test. And same thing here, it's like, we don't have that problem anymore. Like an empty test module if Git is not set. I mean, why would you have that at all, right? I wonder. Because it doesn't even show up, I think. It's nothing. Because there's nothing inside, it will not be run by the test run, it will not show up anywhere. So I think that's definitely redundant. And now that second import I was talking about, now we just pull out what we want. I was just checking one more thing, and it's just fn here, good. So that's definitely internal, and the only thing we can pull out is the one public one, pub crate, pub use, git, git2 impl. Why is it not completing for me? What's going on? Maybe I should disable this. Maybe then it knows better. Okay. And that's a pub crate. So that's just for internal use. That should not get into. That should not get into our public export. Okay, so now in theory it should just compile the same. Okay. Oh yeah, that is not imported. It was in the top level before, but now it's not. So we can just pull that in. Use super Git. So we can just go one level up and take the parent module, so to say, the super module, and pull in what you need from there. That's one way of specifying this. That's how I like it. Then it's relative to the current location, which we know is not going to change. But you can also come from the top, so to say. This is why it's suggested create Git or create feature Git, or there's multiple paths because it's kind of imported everywhere apparently. So I don't know. Also something I try to avoid, by the way. Even within my crate, I only want to have one import path and just put things in the right spot right away, and then rather have implementations in the modules, for example. But anyway, it's definitely a different thing because it gets confusing for yourself real quick if that's happening and makes it harder to contribute.
I can imagine.
Because now we are basically suffering from all these kind of little nitty-gritty things, and it doesn't make it easier. Okay, unused imports, very hard error here, that's fine. So that's now not used here anymore. Cannot find type Git, what? Did I not just import that? What did just happen? I thought I did just import that here with super Git, or did I remove that again? I think I
saw you imported as well.
Okay, I must have removed it again or something else happened. Let's try it again. Okay, now it's back. Anyhow, result, path, and yeah, a lot. Let's see. It's nice that this is underlined, huh? This makes it really easy to understand what you need to keep. So timestamp kind we need to keep. This goes self stays. So self means it's feature that you can access directly. Instead of feature colon timestamp kind, we have, where do we use feature? Feature time zone. That's also something I would probably clean up, because why is timestamp kind imported, but time zone is not?
Not time zone. Yeah.
Oh, probably because there is a trait of the same name. This is why. See, so this squiggly thing means, oh, it knows it, but it's a trait. This is why.
Okay.
Chrono. All of these, I guess. Yeah. Okay, so chrono is really only used for Git, I think, for time conversions. And there's still one that snuck by. Ah, yeah, now it's here in the Git-2 impl. Now it's basically the inverse, I guess. So get set. Wow. Copy getters, mud getters. It's a bit like, it feels a bit like, so that seems to be a, yeah, so that's a derive. And that automatically derives getters and setters. And it's really basically what Java does, right? And in Rust, usually you don't do that. You just expose the fields directly. So if you have getters and mud getters for everything, then expose the field. If you only have getters, then fine. Then you have immutable data in there. That's okay. But if it really is just stupid data and you don't care, then just expose the fields and you're done. But anyway, let's keep going. Oh yeah, okay. So this is super now. If you want to do that, I think you can also do crate, because it gets imported to the top level. So I think doing this might be nicer. And now copy getters, self, makes sense. Path buff. Oh, yeah, without autumn formatting, now I have to do this myself here. Oh, I'm too lazy for this by now. I can't do that. Okay, but the refactoring.
Once you get used to that.
Sorry?
Once you get used to that, you don't want to go back.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've done Whitespace myself for a couple of years for sure. I mean, I probably wasted a good amount of weeks of my life just dealing with Whitespace. And now that I'm older, I just believe I can't do that anymore, because I'm literally dying earlier because of Whitespace, and that's just a bad trade. So great, that seems to work. Let's run the tests. I think cargo test is really the way to go here, and still works. Let's call it Git-oxide. And now we spend a bunch of time just preparing for adding this additional feature toggle. Maybe before I make the commit, let's check what Git-oxide does, and then we have it compile at least. So now this is missing. Makes sense, but it's just that is missing. Wait, yeah, okay. Fair enough. Now we have to, and we can do the same thing, but invert it and have use Git-oxide here instead. So Git-oxide impl. Now we have this entry point, right? Just copy this. Bang. Oh, yeah, this linter. Okay. It's gonna be all right. Anyhow, result, and the rest I can just import with some magic here. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I do hear my fan, which is a bit mildly annoying. I don't know why. All of a sudden, why today? It's like there's a runaway. Yeah, but usually it doesn't do that. It's more like there's a runaway process. OBS is quite unhappy with full CPU here. But yeah. Okay, fine. Didn't happen on the MacBook Air. It's amazing, and it did have no issue either. So now it should. Yeah, right. We have to import that too, and invert that I didn't do. So if let's make this here Git-oxide and not feature Git.
Is that correct though?
That's not correct.
Yeah.
So this is what makes it supersede Git, right? That if it's set, it just does its thing, and Git2 is gated so that it's never appearing if Git-oxide is there too.
Yeah, exactly.
So now this should be correct. Perp use, let's enable this just to be sure I get completion. Perp use self Git-oxide and we'll configure Git. Great. Okay. Now unnecessary dependency to Git repository. I'm compiling what?
Still?
Yeah, I didn't use it. Fair enough.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, okay, fine. Then let repo be Git repository discover. How does it work? Repo path. So it's an option to, yeah, so look, we don't even change that here. Of course, we do that differently. Repo path option T, and that's an asref. Oh, that's the old style of writing it. So the new one would probably be impl asref path. I don't know if there's any difference in type inference or so. I don't think there is. So that should literally be the same. But I don't want to do it because, you know, it's one step too much. Maybe it's not the kind of refactoring I want to do. Only what's really necessary. So I'm going to use this repo path opt. We own it. Actually, we don't own it. Map path as ref. Just execute this as ref so we get an actual path out there. We consume the option in the process. And then we unwrap or do an OK or else. OK or else should allow us to get out of there, but that creates an error where we actually want none. We just want to exit early. So I guess, yeah, oh wait, is there a way? Is there a clever way to get out of there? But yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so, because you have to exit, and for that you have to, yeah, I guess we have to do this. I'm always thinking, can you avoid the match? Let's see if that works. I'm always a bit afraid of the borrow checker when this is involved. Maybe I'm paranoid. Actually, that's an option. So that's our early exit. Yeah, and it's kind of unidiomatic to call it opt or something, because you just override, you just deal with the type and then you just shadow the previous name. And that's how you would do it typically. Oh, these red squiggles, because it's so picky about everything. Oh, makes me a bit upset. So aggressive it makes me, because it's red, you know. So much red. I don't usually see it's yellowish like the sun.
Fine.
Yeah, it's okay. I can deal with that. Okay, so in theory that works now. What? So seems I messed up. I messed something up with the, really? With the signature? So expected instruction, but got config? Are you kidding? Instruction is the first argument. It's this. And that is an instruction instance here. It's what? Look, it's instructions. Where's that coming from? Also not here. And I'm building Git-oxide, so that should be that. It's like something changed somewhere, you know? But and it is real. So this is the call side. This is where it configures Git-oxide. This is where it configures Git. That's the top level. It passes a repo path potentially, okay. But I don't see, look at that. It really thinks this is a mud instructions here. So wait, I mean, I'm insane. So that does not exist. It does not. Or I'm searching wrongly, but that should find it, no? Mud instructions, not nowhere to be found. And even that doesn't do anything, so that is a bit, that is really interesting. Oh.
Yeah, no idea why that happens. It seems unreasonable.
Yeah. And look at this. I mean, here the signature is correct, like you would expect. Oh no, it's not. Configure. Oh no, that's configure build. No, wait, that's the wrong one. Here, show me that. But it's still correct.
Yeah.
And if you jump there, it's actually the right one, and it's doing the right thing. I don't know. Is there anything else? So the one without Git-oxide works, and this is the same thing. And sometimes the squiggly part is at the wrong spot. It's then kind of the other way around, that this for some reason is a config, and I mean maybe.
Yeah, I mean aren't we? Oh no, sorry.
Or like, okay, let's check, right? I mean, what is this for dummies? So that's a config. And self is in instructions. And the first argument is supposed to be in instructions. And the last is supposed to be, I mean, config is what it's supposed to be, but somehow this configure git has the wrong type signature. Where is that happening? Okay, let's follow the trail then. I don't know. What else can you do? Maybe it's something with feature toggles gone wrong. Structure.
But it shouldn't matter, right? I mean, you're using the same signature.
Yeah. And you know, if there's multiple methods exported with the same name because feature toggles are not properly excluding themselves, then it would tell you that there's multiple names of the same for the same method, or multiple methods with the same name, something like that. Okay. I do not see where that is coming from. I cannot see it. That's the first for me. And it's very frustrating. But it's definitely related to what we're doing here. I mean, it's definitely something in here that... Oh. Got it. Create config instructions. Create config. Maybe one of these, maybe this one is not config. It's the wrong import.
It's the wrong kind.
Yeah, it's something else that is also called config. It's create config and not create config, I presume. Yeah? Yeah. But I mean, really, how can this be a different one? Come on, previously it was like the same thing all the time. So this is create config. And then there's create, the top level create struct config. Where's that coming from? Is this a different thing, or is it? It's Vergen config, that's the top level one. Ah, oh, okay. So all right. It's like, do not change my code. I'm gonna confuse you. I'm gonna make you crazy, and you go to a mental institution for that. I was close now. I was thinking I'm losing it. Well done, well played. But you have to try harder. It's getting oxidized. Okay, so this is great config because instructions becomes config one level up.
On the outside.
Okay, and then this is what I expected. Returns reference data owned by the current function. So as ref is not binding, you know, the lifetime of the reference returned is really only for that scope somehow. Like you don't get a lifetime that is bound to the lifetime of the instance itself of t, but as ref is really a temporary, so to say. And that's what makes this impossible. So one would probably do something like that to work around. Just use it right away. Now you have the path here. Instead of putting that one level down, you put that here. But that's the kind of thing that I was expecting. My spidey sense was tingling because whenever I do this, it's kind of the basic trap that I go into. So must be used right away. Don't try to keep it for later. And then we get the repository that's returning an error, and then we get the real repository here. Now we use it and it should let us go. Has enabled dead code, last thing to fix. Yeah, I think we just have to call this in the right spot. So look, this is another top level thing essentially that says, it tells us before we continue, we want to do this. Right, and that's just the thing we have to copy paste to get the same logic, I presume. Come on, Git-oxide, where are you? Here you are. Okay, so what's more important? I guess we can start with this. So if not is enabled, bail out with an OK. Just do nothing. Oh yeah, now we use instructions too, that's good. Now we can just use this. Is that so? Yes. See, so that is that. This instance there is in the instructions somehow, and then it's just this that we have to do apparently. So that's config, right? So instructions, that's actually config. So we know this is just for configuring what kind of data is produced. And this is what we look up later. And this is, I think, why this is. So if everything is disabled, bail out early, this is what that does. And I'd say I probably wouldn't do it except for this top level enabled. I think that's the only important check. But everything else, you have to check separately anyway. So in the end, you get nothing because if all that is true, you get nothing. Just this top level thing that saves you some time. Not that it costs us much, right? But not instantiating a repo, I think that's the most expensive thing, also in air quotes, because it's super lazy too. It really just reads one file, maybe the config file, and then that's all it does. Okay. Gee, so that's the boilerplate, and we have it right here. Big moment, is it gonna compile now? Let us compile. Yes. And we have a ton of, so here it would continue. Here we actually have to do work. So maybe instead of failing hard, let's see how much fails. I would expect only one failure, which is the regex test. See?
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's okay. And, you know, something I also kind of learned the hard way, it's always a good idea to have every commit that every commit you make pass all tests. So if it can't pass the test, just disable it. So config.
Because of CI running and then, I don't know, things breaking on the server or whatever.
Or if reviewers go through commit by commit and then they run the tests and they expect it to work, and kind of, you know, just a good habit to have. I do this for Git-oxide too, by the way. I always keep the tests disabled that currently don't work, which is also good because then you see, that's what you're working on, but here's a step in that direction so that you can, you know, go home at some point. Or stay home because everybody kind of works from home for now.
Switch rooms.
Switch rooms. Go to the living room, turn on the TV, this kind of stuff. So, config adder, is that right? So what we want is, if feature is Git-oxide, then you add the attribute ignore. And IntelliJ is pretty neat by now because it really knows what you're doing. So it's kind of a validation for me that I'm not totally off, because some syntaxes I don't use a lot. So yeah, this means it's a conditional config, right? So you can also do, no wait, you can do this. Oh, I think config adder is then the wrong one. I don't know. Maybe, don't know. Okay, let's try. Let's see if it works. This is maybe working. So if it's Git-oxide, ignore that. Oh, it did work. Cool. Nice.
Yeah, cool.
And this is how everything works with Git-oxide and without. And I guess for completeness, I mean, what I do, and we really have to wrap this up. It's already more than an hour. I'm trying. Let's check the GitHub workflow. There's just one. See what it does. It runs Rust FMT and runs check. Are you kidding me? Okay, so we have to do this too. It did look like my Rust FMT did stuff that didn't. Okay. If Rust FMD should have nothing to do if it's properly formatted, but this lint seems to be breaking if it's not properly formatted, so I don't know how that worked. Don't know, maybe it's the version of it. Maybe that it's a different one here as a minimal Rust version that is needed. Okay. Clippy, that's nice. So a lot of CI steps are running to actually maintain the code. It's a bit strange that it looked like FMT is not used, because it did change a lot for me, right? Don't know. Yeah, so what I would want to do now is to put another test in to verify that Git-oxide is actually tested also on CI, and then it should also work. Because then eventually when there's a PR, the PR should actually test the new stuff too. Oh, look at that. Now I get it. So there is something about test data. And maybe... Oh, cargo all features. So it tests with all feature permutations too. This is what this does. So it seems that this CI is built to actually do much more than you can do locally out of the box. This is where my makefiles come in usually, that I only call into makefiles. So that CI doesn't have exclusive knowledge that you can't reproduce locally, because then, yeah, you're constantly breaking CI, or you kind of have in your history what you're supposed to do here. And then again, for contributors, that's not the case ever. So I don't know, tarpaulin, I haven't used that yet. Don't know.
So the only way to really test this is to just essentially upload it at some point, let the CI run and see if it works.
Yeah, I mean, I guess studying the CI is something to just do as it runs. Can do this on our clone. And since I saw this kind of, one of these was definitely related to cross-testing all permutations of feature toggles, so I would believe that it at least builds with Git-oxide at some point. And that's cool. Okay, I give up here on this one. I thought it's for another day. Let's just run it and see. Maybe we're lucky. But with the FMT, yeah, so let's first make a commit so that I don't destroy everything again with FMT, and then we see what FMT really does. Still don't trust it. Oh yeah, commit. Let's see. Is there some commit styling going on here? No, just words. No special formatting. Okay, so nothing really we have to do specifically. Add frame for implementing Git functionality with Git-oxide. It's made so that it supersedes Git-2 if Git-oxide feature is enabled. That way nothing should change for existing users, but those who want can opt in by also specifying the Git-oxide feature. And this means, well, what does this mean? Kind of for transitioning, that it's more like beta testing maybe. Right now this is not, like, we can never remove the Git-oxide feature toggle, otherwise we have a breaking change. And we can't really remove the Git feature toggle. So if at some point in the future Git-2 is removed, which could happen, then you basically have two feature toggle for the same thing. You have Git-oxide and Git, and they're just the same, and there shouldn't be anything special about it. But you also can't really remove it without a major version bump. Or you just live with the fact that you advertise for Git-oxide kind of in your feature toggles, which is probably okay. Alternatively, you rename the feature toggle to be something that makes clear that it's going to be removed at some point when it becomes stable or something, but technically it's still a breaking change. There's no convention really on how to do this and how to better test feature toggles. So I don't know. So that's probably something to discuss also with the maintainers. Yeah, what does this mean? Everything I just said is what I would have to write here. You can never remove the Git-oxide toggle without imposing breaking changes, even though it's possible to eventually remove Git-2 as dependency and live with having Git and Git-oxide as feature toggles that do the same thing. Or one has a breaking change. By the way, technically, people are able to use optional crates as feature toggles. So Git-2 is a crate that is optional, so I can turn that on specifically. I don't have to turn on Git. I can also turn on Git-2. I see that, so to say. That's public. So technically, if an optional dependency changes, it's also a breaking change, because people who use this can now not use it anymore. So you should not rely on that if there's a top-level feature that is available here. But technically, people could still break if you remove Git-2. So yeah, something to remember. Always, ideally, don't rely on optional features. Always have your own toggle there that you can keep stable. And that allows you to potentially replace that optional crate with something else one day. Yeah, it just came to my mind. I never really thought about it, but now I realize, yeah, for stability, a good thing to have your own. All right, that's it.
Definitely.
Okay, and now cargo FMT. It does not look too terrible, but it definitely changes. Look, it changes the existing Git-2 implementation, so I really wonder how that could ever work. Don't know. There's also no Rust FMT TOML here, so there's no special configuration. This is just the default, and maybe my Rust FMT is too new and does something differently. Maybe they changed something. Don't know. So now I have to really, you should have a Rust FMT.toml to configure Rust FMT and kind of pin down the thing it does, even as the version of Rust FMT changes. Okay, for now it's good. Let's no, not a PR. Can I do this? Ooh, repo. Okay, fork. Like to add a remote? Yes. Okay. Oh yeah, so now mine is origin. Okay. Okay. And now I think I have to turn on actions. And that should trigger an action, maybe? Let's try that again. Recording, sorry. Could have muted myself. Okay. Okay, really have to wrap this up. Yeah. It does not launch because, okay, that's really for, how is it called? Workflows, main. When does it run? Only to master. Really? And pull requests. Okay, I mean, that's fair, right? Let's just put this in master. And git push upstream. Is that the flag? I think I can just git push like this. No, I can't. Because my upstream is still set differently. So now that thing should start. Delete all these extra branches that we don't need anymore. And it's still there. And now it runs. Great. Oh, that looks interesting. It's a real graph. Look at that. It's amazing.
Very nice.
And it has, emojis in there. Cool. I didn't know it could do that. Mine looks ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing.
But look, the formatting already failed, right?
Did it? Yes. Okay. Oh, look, I think the formatting just didn't run for a while or something. I mean, that's not the problem. Here you go. Go again. Okay. Did it already? No, that's the old one. Alright, here's the new one. Okay. I mean, it's probably gonna work, but yeah, that's just details. Wow, that was a long session. And no Git-oxide done yet. Amazing. Oh, that's that's work. And
yeah, but still, I mean, the foundation is all there now. Everything, the basis is set up, and now it's really just, you can focus on the actual implementation of Git-oxide and see how to best put that in.
Yeah. You're suggesting now everything is going to be easy, huh? Okay, got it.
That's not what I'm saying.
That's what I want to hear, because maybe it is. But that's cool here. A matrix of lints even, and then metrics for, geez. I really always thought that GitHub CI is kind of a bit ugly, kind of this view, and it's super inconvenient to navigate. But maybe you just have to set it up so that you get a graph. It's just what nobody has apparently except for Vergen. Okay, neat. Yeah, well, I think that's with this pretty picture, that's a good time to stop it for today and say thank you for
Thank you as well.
joining this long session, and thank you everybody for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.
Bye bye.